Alright, here we go. Oh. The tongue affects your singing a lot.
Suddenly everybody is talking about the tongue.
Where exactly should you place your tongue when you're singing?
I always say that your tongue should be placed in a very natural position.
And is there an ideal tongue position that if you were to use it, you'll become a better singer?
Natural position.
If the color of your voice is attached to the position of your tongue, so if you manipulate your color with the tongue, you are creating a fake color.
It's a fake!
A dark that doesn't really exist.
I created it, and it's real!
You are creating a fake color.
It's a fake!
Actually, if you saw that my tongue is not in a tense state, it's actually in a very relaxed state. In fact, it's pulling even farther away.
Larynx and pharynx open. Gola aperta. Words of Giacomo Lauri Volpi.
Open throat technique.
Arturo Melocchi used to say, tenga la lingua avanti. Keep your tongue forwards. Okay? You can hear it here. Tenga la lingua avanti. Tenga la lingua avanti.
And also because we are singing with a high positioned tongue, the sound that comes out of your air pipe gets reflected on your hard palate on the top and goes directly out.
Sound independently of the position of your tongue, it should be natural.
I always say that your tongue should be placed in a very natural position.
The important thing is to keep your larynx and pharynx open.
If your tongue is in a low position, the tongue itself will partly be in your throat, in the back of your throat.
I use my tongue so that I can maintain good open throat technique.
Tongue rocks straight back. Here's where the tongue does not go up, but the tongue retracts back.
And what you're going to find is that if the tongue is tensing, you're going to actually see the tongue narrowing
Now, I always say that your tongue should be placed in a very natural position.
Hmm. Oh, where is my camera? Sorry, guys. I'm supposed to have a camera here, but I have disappeared. I have disappeared myself. Let's try a different scene. Yeah, well there I am there. Why am I not there? 1 second, let me figure out what's happening here. I just have no idea, you guys. Oh, there I am. Sorry, I had moved myself over for some reason. Can't remember what that was. I think it was my guest sources here. Because I had someone on the show, and now everything's messed up. But hi, welcome back to Mr. Opera, and we're going to be talking about some tongue placement stuff today. Some is really, really interesting stuff, helpful stuff maybe, that I've come across, but I've come across a hell of a lot of bullshit all over YouTube, and then, thinking back in my training days, not that my training days are over, but thinking back to all of my education, I guess. I had a whole lot of bullshit fed to me regarding my tongue and what it does in the first place, and etc., etc. So I thought we should talk about that. I want to give an overview that what I'm teaching here, if you will, or discussing or introducing or trying to influence you with here is called New School Singing. Whoa, that's the wrong one. And New School Singing basically breaks down your efforts into different categories so that you can stay organized. And you've got fitness, which is going to be, it's just fitness, but more specifically, fitness is being able to do something. If you can do it, you are fit to do it. And so that's what that means. I'm gonna adjust my mic here because it looks like in this new plugin I got, I can see I'm still clipping a little bit. So this should sound a little bit better. Dobry večer, Petrze. Yo. Okay. So other than fitness, there's this category of heart, which is basically, think of it as performance psychology. So getting back to knowledge of things, we can have knowledge of what makes the voice work, what makes the voice sound like it does. And that's going to be specific positions, and then when you put them together, you're going to have specific motion. In New School Singing, I do have this third category of action, which is attitude, but you can't hear attitudes. Nobody can tell what an attitude is. That's something between you and yourself. So not between anybody, since you can't be between you and yourself. But attitudes are kind of the indescribable self-talk that we use for all our actions. You know, it goes like this. You wouldn't be able to really give me language that communicates what it is like for you to walk. But you can put on the attitude of walking, and next thing you know, you're walking. But that's all specific position and motion. So what we're seeing that we're summing up with all this attitude is specific position and motion. You could say that what I'm going to be talking about is like details, I guess. So let's go real quick to pink trombone, just so we can review what those areas of influence are that I go on about, because we need these for this whole discussion today is going to really be about mapping and locating things. And I'm going to show, I hope we're going to show why it's maybe the language of vocal pedagogy that is screwing up even like really, really skilled singers like the one that we just saw, so that when they're teaching others to do what they're doing, they wind up giving a confused and often self-contradictory set of instructions. But most importantly, they do something like saying the sky is green, where things clearly work one way. You can actually learn to perceive them or feel them, but also because you can't see any of this, it's easy to kind of fill in the sensations that you experience with whatever imagined shape or state or position or motion you want to believe in. So you could be narrowing your area of interest, number 3, as I call it, for instance, and that feels open to you, and everyone talks about it as open, and so now that's open. You just kind of relabel it. You just change how you perceive that, and you think of the picture that you've been given for what's going on, whatever that picture is, whether it's correct or it's incorrect. You will feel the same about your map of your vocal tract. You'll test it out. It'll seem like it works, and that's going to be whether or not it's actually a good map. It's actually in any way accurate. So that's what we're going to do. And I propose that we check to see if a map is accurate by making predictions about what should happen to the sound when we make a particular change, and then seeing if that really happens. Right? And if it doesn't happen, then we should say it didn't happen. And if it only happens sometimes, we should be asking, well, why does this happen sometimes but not other times? And so we should be very careful about saying, because we saw something happen, that's always what happens. Anywho, let me try to get my stuff working here so that I can draw on the screen. Oop. There we go. And this is a web app called Pink Trombone, in case you're not familiar with this. My mouse is doing the disappearing mouse trick. Oh, it's because I have this pencil, and if I put it near my drawing pad, it gets activated. Okay. So, I think in order to use this, I actually need to get into this let's see, into here. Yeah. So hopefully this is all working properly for you guys. And you can hear a voice right now. I'm gonna check the levels. Make sure we're not killing everyone. This appears to be working. Turn it off. Yes. Okay. It looks like I have good levels from this. Oh, what I've done. I messed it up. Tap here to reset. Okay. So I can, in this neat little app is called Pink Trombone. You can use this online. Just look up Pink Trombone. Turn that off for a second. And the way this works is you can go around with your mouse, or if you're on iOS, or if you're on Android or iOS, it turns out you can use 1 or 2 fingers to make changes in shape to this vocal tract. And it's programmed, as far as I can tell, according to perturbation theory, and that's the acoustic theory that I use to explain how we make vowels and stuff, and how we change the sound with the tongue and the mouth, etc. So obviously I like this one. And you can go and play with this. Let's see. Now I've stuck my pen on the wrong side. Oh, jeez. 1 second, guys. I need to correct one more thing here. Okay, so switch the screen over. Should be switching the screen over here. And no. One more moment. Okay. So, and we're back. Sorry for the delay there while I get my gear working. And back into here. Okay. Now, if we wanted to figure out where we are in the vocal tract, the way people usually talk about the tongue is they just say the tongue. Where do they mean? Do they mean like anything that's affected by the tongue? Like, do they mean here? Or do they mean back here? And then here and here? Obviously they mean in here, because we're told about things that we see the tongue doing in the mouth. So let's say that when people talk about the tongue being forward or back, they tend to mean like this region of the tongue, the area that you can see. Once in a while, they do mention that there is this whole back of the tongue area. They don't often mention that it actually connects all the way down at the hyoid bone. The hyoid bone is essentially, I mean, not the way everybody explains it. Maybe, okay, anatomy books don't explain it this way, but I do. I say that the hyoid bone is really the main bone of the larynx. But generally in anatomy models, the larynx is listed separately from the hyoid bone. That doesn't make them independent from each other, though. The thyroid, which is where the actual larynx starts, has very little independence, very little freedom of movement from the hyoid, although it does have a bit. Closer to the hyoid bone and closer to, essentially, what we care about is the vocal folds, is what I call area of interest, so AOI number 3. If we go to the end of the vocal tract, what's usually referred to, not usually, but what ought to be referred to as the terminal opening, that's area of interest number 2. If we look at 1/3 of the way between area of interest number 3 and number 2, we get number 4. And if we look at 2/3 of the way from number 3 to number 2, we get number 5. Now you're asking, well, where's number 1? Number 1 is used to represent the whole distance from 3 to 2. What is this whole shape? And that's related to a lot of things, like if you stick your lips out, area of interest number 1 gets longer. If you lower your larynx, area of interest number 1 gets longer. And if you rotate your neck, if you rotate your head, you might wind up making changes to area of interest number 1. If you move your head forward and back, you might bring area of interest number 2 closer to area of interest number 3 and shorten area of interest number 1, but you might not be raising your larynx. So that's why I have an area of interest number 1. Instead of talking about just whether or not there's this laryngeal elevation or laryngeal depression, there's also the important thing to consider, which is that not all laryngeal depression is the same. So if the larynx is being pulled down, or the thyroid is being pulled down harder than the hyoid, you get a gap developing between the two. And you could have the trachea even pulling down on the cricoid and the thyroid and pulling down the larynx. You can have the hyoid primarily pulling down the larynx by means of muscles connected to your back and to your shoulders, called the omohyoideus muscles, and then muscles connected to your sternum, called the sternohyoideus muscles. And if those muscles were essentially were accomplishing a lot of the, or most of the larynx lowering, or just if they're pulling harder than the muscles attaching the thyroid to the sternum, and harder than the muscles, or the fascia rather, that could be pulling down on the trachea, then essentially your hyoid is pushing your thyroid down. You get this, it's a pull, right? But you're pulling down something that is on top of something else. So it's almost like you're creating a push. and you might even feel grinding between your thyroid and hyoid if you're using this. So if I start up, well, I can write this down before I do it. I'm going to write down what is the effect of constricting a particular area. So constriction in area of interest number 1. So that's what you say. What is that? Well, because we're not really constricting area of interest number 1, we're shortening it. But in any case, when you shorten the vocal tract, you send all resonances up. Let's say you brighten. But we're not going to have this on pink trombone. So I can't show you laryngeal. I can't show you changes to area of interest number 1 really in this app, this little web app, because it doesn't let me shorten and lengthen the vocal tract much. I can change this mouth opening, but it's not really, it's barely a vocal change of length. And now number 2, and that was the end, that's the terminal opening. If I constrict it, that's going to darken. It's going to lower all resonances of the vocal tract. Area of interest number 3, if I constrict it, that's going to raise things. It's going to make things brighter and make them actually twangy, because that's what it does. Well, and if you constrict it closer to area of interest number 4, it's going to make things knurdly. But hopefully, well, not hopefully, I shouldn't say that. If you don't want the knurdly sound, you can just twang instead. Area of interest number 4, when you constrict it, when you make it smaller, that's going to lower things. And then area of interest number 5, when you constrict it, that's going to raise things. Okay? So remember all that because it's important. I'm going to erase it. So we're back at 3. You might be asking, like, why do I name it this way? Well, it's because you think about the whole length of your vocal tract. That's 1. And then mentally, as you're on stage or whatever, next thing, you set the opening of your mouth. 2. Now you go like around the clock. Next thing is you go back to the beginning of the vocal tract. And you set how much constriction in area of interest number 3, what kind of shape you've got there. Next you do area of interest number 4. And then you do area of interest number 5. So you can kind of, it kind of goes around a circle. It's like a clock shape. That's the idea behind that. Okay? Now if I turn on the voice and I start constricting in these areas, it's going to behave like I predicted. So let's say I constrict area of interest number 4. Now I predicted that would lower things, particularly the second formant's going to get lowered, but it's not exactly all that's going on. Some things are getting raised when I do this, etc., but essentially, going towards that number 4 makes things darker. This happens for everybody, right? And that's one way that you can make changes to the second resonance of your vocal tract that don't affect the first resonance of your vocal tract so much. So if you wanted to make some kind of difference between them, like say pushing them closer together, you could constrict area of interest number 4, and that would that would lower that second formant and put it closer to the first formant. We all use this. It doesn't matter who you are or how you think about things. You use this in some way. Now, area of interest number 5 is going to have the opposite effect. And by the way, if you're noticing cool number things, all of the odd numbered ones have the same direction of effect. They raise things when you constrict them. And then all the even numbered ones have the opposite direction of effect. They lower things when you constrict them, and vice versa. 3 and 5 lower things when you expand them, and 4 and 2 raise things. Yeah. They raise things when you expand them. So if I go into, oops, not there. So if I turn the voice back on, and I constrict towards area of interest, constrict towards area of interest number 5. So E is essentially brighter than You know, and when I drop that down and constrict into area of interest number 4, I start to get something like etc. Now you might be thinking, well, therefore these are the tongue positions for these vowels, but that's not how it works. So how it works is that like any combination of resonance that you can come up with will work. As long as it adds up, then please post this. Hey, I can't see. Soft Kitzer, something like that. Please post this after the stream is over. All the streams get automatically saved, so it'll be right here. But if you mean the name of the the website that this is from, I can write that down. Or I can just show you the about. So there you go. Pink trombone V1.1, and you just look that up and you'll find that site automatically. So back to the areas of interest here. What you need to know is that for everybody, the area of interest number 4 and number 5 have this effect, and for everybody, if I turn on the voice again, number 3 has this effect. So you can hear that gets brighter too. Whoops, as long as I don't get too close. If I get too close, I get... Right, so I gotta be careful. But anyway. Oh, that's good. So there's area of interest number 3, sorry. And you hear that makes everything get bright. But also, you'll notice it even has it in here, although this doesn't mean it's the only way to do this. But the very back of the tongue is also raising things when it's pushed towards area of interest number 3, because constriction in area of interest number 3 raises all resonant frequencies of the vocal tract. It's often called twang. Now, next up is going to be area of interest number 2, And this has the opposite effect from area of interest number 3. When you constrict it, it gets darker. Everything goes down. And now these darker and brighter words are really subjective. You don't need to, if that doesn't sound darker and brighter to you, whatever, it doesn't matter. Higher and lower. If you were tuning your second formant, like doing overtone scales, like to do that, I tune the overtone to the formant, probably the second formant, to a particular overtone. And now I'm following this map in order to get it on the overtone and to move to the next overtone. So if I want to go up, if I want to go to a higher overtone, I can move my tongue out of area of interest number 4 and into area of interest number 5, but I could also now I'm making a change to area of interest number 2, and that is because it tunes all resonances of the vocal tract. That's able to help me get this isolated overtone. Yeah, so that's how that works. Just needed to go through those really quickly so that we can get situated, so that we can talk about what's going on. Now, when I talk about the vocal tract in these terms, using these areas of interest, you could say that the result is acoustic address for things. So if I do this thing, so I'll turn on the voice, this thing, right? One way to talk about this in anatomical terms is I could say I'm retracting the tongue, right? But that's tongue retraction. That's tongue retraction. That's tongue retraction. Right? It's all tongue retraction. Is that tongue retraction? Well, probably to get this to happen, you're going to see tongue retraction. Right? So, what's tongue retraction? Is it moving into area of interest number 4? Is it moving into area of interest number 3? Is it both? Those are acoustically not the same thing. They have basically it's more than not the same thing. They have opposite effects. Now, okay, number 4 doesn't have this opposite effect on the first formant. Oh, I don't know. It looks like I've lost my camera here. So maybe the signal is unstable. I'm streaming to actually two places at once, but it looks like my camera just had some doubts about life. Let's see what's going on here. I'm going to restart this camera. And let's play this in the meantime. Yeah, well, I'm not particularly closer to getting my camera working here. Stand by. Technical difficulties.
The
I'm gonna
tongue
play this
affects
again.
your singing a lot.
Suddenly everybody is talking about the tongue.
Where exactly should you place your tongue when you're singing?
Now, I always say that your tongue should be placed in a very natural position.
And is there an ideal tongue position that if you were to use it, you'll become a better singer?
Oh man.
Natural position.
If the color of your voice
Sorry,
is attached to the position of your tongue, so if you manipulate your color with the tongue, you are creating a fake color.
It's a fake.
A dark that doesn't really exist.
I created it, and it's real.
You are creating a fake color.
It's a fake.
Actually, if you saw that my tongue is not in a tense state, it's actually in a very relaxed state. In fact, it's pulling even farther away.
Larynx and pharynx open. Gola aperta. Words of Giacomo Lauri Volpi.
Open throat technique.
Arturo Melocchi used to say, tenga la lingua avanti. Keep your tongue forwards. Okay? You can hear it here. Tenga la lingua avanti.
And also because we are singing with a high position tongue, the sound that comes out of your air pipe gets reflected on your heart palate on the top and goes directly out.
Sound independently of the position of your tongue, it should be natural.
Now, I always say that your tongue should be placed in a very natural position.
The important thing is to keep your larynx and pharynx open.
If your tongue is in a low position, the tongue itself will partly be in your throat, in the back of your throat.
I use my tongue so that I can maintain good open throat technique.
Tongue rocks straight back. Here's where the tongue does not go up, but the tongue retracts back.
And what you're going to find is that if the tongue is tensing, you're going to actually see the tongue narrowing.
Now, I always say that your tongue should be placed in a very natural position.
The tongue affects
yeah.
your singing a lot.
Yeah, so that was a bit crazy. As I get my stuff to work here. But that's the gist of it. They don't agree on anything. But I think there's like, oh jeez, what's going on here? Now I've got like everything on the screen at once. Okay. Now where's my dudes? See if I can. This is disaster today on the That works. But that's not working. Okay, 1 second, guys. Try to. No, it's just yeah. Okay. The relation, let's see. One question about formants and vowels. BSB 333. What relation of the formants? Okay. No, okay. It's relative. You've got the pitch. You've got things like context. But when it comes to formants, what's given actually in all of these I guess guides that you can look at is ranges. And in particular, what's important is the relationship of the first and the second formant. And it's not just about like you pick a number and you put it on that number and that makes that vowel. It's about things like, for instance, the oo vowel, first and second formant are really low and they're close together. And then o, they're a little bit less close together. But E and U, for instance, both tend to feature a low first formant. The difference is that E winds up having the second formant really far from the first formant. So we can look in Vocal Tract Lab at different different formant peaks, and then what they would look like, and what sounds that we get. Let me see if really quickly if I can get and this maybe to help illustrate everything that's going on. So this guy obviously is like extremely skilled. He's really good at this. And I wanted to show really quick this clip because of the point he's going to be trying to make. And I guess I'm gonna bullshit inspector him a little bit, but he seems very strong, so he can handle it. So anyway, that's his C4 to C5, extremely well sung. Kind of like middle of the road as far as the density. So it's not like the heaviest vocal coordination you could have, but it sounds great. But then let's look at this.
Okay, a very fast advice before starting the lessons
aspect ratio
of the afternoon. For the top, keep the larynx on place. Don't let it come up.
So he's got the camera angle so you can't see. But I just want you to keep that in mind as we watch that this tongue position, this vowel sounded different. We could go back and listen again to the other one. This was darker than the other one. I would say it seemed a lot like the larynx was lower, but importantly, the vocal tract longer. And in this case, the tongue. So from an area of interest point of view, he's got the tongue retracted into area of interest number 4. That makes things darker. And that explains why the vowel sounds darker than the one he had before. So this one the top vowel is still darkened relative to the lower one. But it comes out brighter. And that's absolutely so whatever it is he's going to tell us, he does the same thing as everyone, which is to make the sound a bit darker, to make a slightly darker vowel. You're going to have this retraction into area of interest number 4. What he's also going to be telling us that I strongly disagree with is that he's not using narrowing of area of interest number 3 in the first place. Well, I'm not sure if he's saying that, because as we'll see, the terms he used could mean anything. And even if he got specific, because he's only using, shall we say, anatomical address instead of the acoustic address, we're not sure always what it is that he means, and there's no way to check what he meant. So let's see.
The tongue. Suddenly everybody is talking about the tongue. Some vocal coaches are coming out with the most crazy concepts. Now, something very important to
this
keep in
video
mind.
was called Vocal Secret No One Is Talking About, but now he's talking about what everyone's talking about.
If the color of your voice is attached to the position of your tongue, so if you manipulate your color with the tongue, you are creating a fake color,
So,
a dark.
I mean, this kind of thing makes me so just this kind of statement. Now we're not even talking about technique, I guess, at this point. This is like pure, it's like anti-consumer psychological warfare or something like this. So what if let's just say I decide to use similar logic to make similar statements and support them in similar ways. I could say something like, using the label voice master above your name is a way to try to establish fake authority, because it's not real authority, because voice master isn't a thing that even really exists. So, okay, that's my opinion about voice master and putting that above your name, right? But that's subjective. That's the feel that I get when someone puts voice master above their name. It makes me think, like, what is this guy insecure about that he needs to try to, I don't know, come at me with this voice master lower thirds thing. So that's fine. But I'm just saying, there's no way for me to be like wrong about that. And there's no way for me to be right about that. It's just like my subjective opinion. And it's like self-serving. Of course I like me. Of course I think my way. I think I'm cool. And I think other people are not as cool. Okay. So that, yeah, it's a color is a color. It's not fake or real. And more importantly, what is he talking about, though? Because retracting the tongue towards area of interest number 3 makes things brighter. Is that artificial? Is that fake brightness? Fake twang? It's literally the opposite of what he tells us makes a big sound. So, but it's what physics tells us it makes a big sound and controls the airflow that's coming out.
Doesn't really exist. Now,
it's what
Arturo
physics tells us he uses to make his sound. That's
used to say, tenga la lingua avanti. Keep your tongue forwards. Okay? You can hear it here. Tenga la lingua avanti. Tenga la lingua avanti.
Okay. Bullshit of bullshits. I looked into this. I'm trying to do what I can. I didn't do anything today or the day before. But briefly, I was looking at these voice lessons that got posted of Meloki. This I guess was Meloki a voice master? I don't think Meloki probably never put voice, like he never gave anyone a card that said, "Oh, hello, I am Meloki, voice master." You know, the dude sounds. Whoops, I reset it. Okay, he had 2. I wanted to hide the count. So probably Meloki was pretty confident and didn't do this kind of thing, but more importantly, Meloki isn't saying this to everyone all the time. So this isn't like something Meloki used to say. That's something he found Meloki telling someone during the course of a lesson. And that would be true if Meloki thinks you always have to have your tongue forward, but it would also be true if Meloki thinks sometimes you have to have your tongue forward. And it just happened to be that in that particular instance, that guy's tongue was a little bit far back for the purposes of what they were doing. That's it, probably. That's probably all that meant. And somehow this gets turned into, well, Meloki used to say you have to have the tongue forward. And so what? Does that make, I don't know. I guess that makes Craig Sirianni wrong earlier when he was showing his thing. That sounded pretty freaking powerful. I don't know. That doesn't really make too much sense to me. Not quite credible.
And I want to show you a little bit what I mean and what he meant with this. Lingua avanti, larynx open, low, floating, pharynx free. Okay? So
okay.
your vocal colors.
Lingua avanti, so the tongue in the front, larynx floating, low, pharynx.
Should
not
change regarding your tongue position.
It's
simple.
Like this, so this is what I'm talking about. What's going on that we don't have? Look, you don't. Okay, don't use the areas of interest. I don't care. I don't care what you're using. I don't care what map. Well, I mean, I think my map is really good. You should use my map. People should give me a bunch of money for talking about it and stuff. You should support me on coffee.com, and also like get in touch at therealmropera@gmail.com and let me work for you and give me money. Okay, yeah. That's cool. That's cool, but things still got to be right or wrong or, true or untrue.
If you put your tongue back, it will sound woofy. It will take the sound, it will make it...
If you put your tongue back where? So that's the thing. The map is referring to like a bunch of areas, and some of them have opposite effects. So if you pull your tongue back because you are using that to create narrowing in area of interest number 3, there's no way that's going to make things sound woofy. It can't do that. That's like saying that no, don't make the mouth end of your megaphone narrow, because that's going to constrict the sound and make your megaphone sound woofy. What you need is a megaphone that's totally open at the base. Yeah, the strongest megaphone is just a straight glass tube. That's the strongest megaphone. That doesn't make any sense. No, a megaphone should be shaped like a megaphone. And if you're thinking in really general terms, to make the vocal tract strong, you shape it like a megaphone. And then you put a strong signal through it. In some ways, it's that simple. Some of those positions could look like what he's saying, and then others could look like what Craig is saying. Why does it have to be that, like, there's one tongue position? Well, as far as, Adrian, do you mean open the throat? Oh, you mean like the sensation of feeling the sound being open. Yeah, I think also there's this when you use these vocal modes that have this really this higher, what's called the glottal flow declination rate, the maximum glottal flow declination rate or something like that. It's not it's not even about how long the vocal folds are getting stuck together. It's also like what is the timing of opening versus closing. And you're making all this sound, and usually more sound goes with more air coming out. And I mean, it's still true to some extent, but when you get more sound as a result of switching vocal modes, that's not true anymore. You break that whole more air equals more sound thing. And you might feel really surprised at how much sound you get relative to how much effort you have to make. Doesn't mean it was easy to learn it, but You know, it's like you get all this sound and it does not feel like a lot of effort. And it feels open. I gotta admit that. It feels like attitude-wise, that's a perfect way to describe it. People talk about like your heart is open, etc., free. That's great. These kind of metaphorical feelings and attitudes and things. But when it comes to like what's actually going on, well, and if you're paying attention to the actual mechanical sensations, you can feel epilaryngeal narrowing. You can feel that he could feel that to make this sound, he has to make this narrowing. If he's getting that narrowing consistently without having to think about what it feels like, great. That's awesome. In my experience, a lot of people get it for a minute and then lose it. And they're like me, constantly having to go back to work to get it to keep working as their body keeps changing for their whole freaking life. So epilaryngeal narrowing. I mean, I'm using some as I speak right now. I think to train it separately, there's different things you can do. For instance, if I'm narrowing in a very close region, but I'm doing it with the vestibular folds, so that like the Valsalva maneuver thing, that can seem similar, but it's capable of completely stopping the air. Whereas epilaryngeal narrowing isn't going to be doing that. You're not going to wind up. You can stop the air with the epiglottis, right? But this epilaryngeal narrowing that we're talking about, even when you do it hard, doesn't completely stop the air. However, when you're listening, even if you're not phonating, you can hear the air starts to move more quickly. So like the pitch of the air, not that it's moving more quickly, that it's moving through this constriction, so the pitch of the air goes up. So if I'm going to twang without sound, and if I was going to add sound, I was going ah. I can also do some of the typical things that are done to teach twang. Like, think of a nasty sound. Eh, 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 eh. And if glottals help, I think. Glottals do help. But I'm doing more than glottal. I'm trying to squeeze the vocal folds together, shall we say. You could think of like... so a lot of times when classical teachers are talking about vocal fold closure, they're actually talking about epilaryngeal narrowing, and it's really close by. But I guess the difference is you can narrow the epiglottis front to back and side to side, or back to front, front to back, side to side as well. But if I take this and I just essentially lower my tongue and retract my tongue, in order to retract my tongue, I'm going to be lowering my larynx. So, so essentially that. The way to train epilaryngeal narrowing is probably the same as anything else. Like, start by imitating. imitating someone who's doing it. And then the funny thing is, I listen to these Meloki lessons like that he's talking about. So this guy's talking about studying this Meloki method, going back and finding the true Meloki method. And you go and what are they doing in these lessons? And the guy's singing to the guy's like ah ah ah. And Meloki's like no ah 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 yeah ah 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 ah. You know, they're doing this kind of stuff. So and then that's all. Yeah, I would say, and the glottals make a hell of a lot of sense if you're trying to make the vocal folds stronger. It's like a little workout for your vocal folds. So, yeah, the glottals are also. I think the glottals is more about encouraging short vocal folds, but no, I see them used all the time for trying to get some. Hey, Voice Studio East. Oh, that's Cornelius. How's it going, Cornelius? You can zoom in if you want to, by the way. Yeah. So anyway, I think the glottals are. I mean, they might be related to both. I don't know if we can look at. Let's see. Let's see if I can get. If I can get Blender up here. No, that's not Blender. There's Blender. Let's see. So, I don't know if this got the larynx in here. Let's see if I got all the pieces here. I'll just start pulling things away. I was gonna try to show you tongue stuff. But I guess we can go in. Let's see what we can see. Now I'm taking away I shouldn't have taken away the hyoid. Let's undo that. We need to actually look at the. I don't know if the epiglottis and stuff is all gonna be in here. Let's look. I haven't. This is the laryngocentric. Well, actually, this is just a mess of 3D parts. But it's this project I was working on, trying to get the whole vocal tract animated. So there's the thyroid cartilage. Remember it before I hide it. Oh, so we got a larynx in here. See if I can see what we need to look at. Oh, they don't look great. But you can sort of see. And no, some are missing and kind of in the wrong place. Whoops. Let's see. All right. So this green here is the thyroarytenoid muscle. Let's see. That's not a great color, but that's. I don't know if you can see that. Oh no, everything's in the way. Oh, it's not. I'm just not gonna write on the screen with this. It's too much. So if I pull this away, this thyroarytenoid, there's our vocal ligament, and well, some random muscle that's just looks like I just put a bad texture on it or something at some point. So that's just kind of floating there. We'll take that away. Oh. I don't know what's going on. But here you can see I've selected one of the arytenoid cartilages. And then you can see there's something going from the top over to the epiglottis. So I could put this. At least I can do something with my pencil here. So I'll put some blue color on it and see it a bit better. It's not well positioned. But you get the idea that there's something connecting the top of the arytenoid cartilage, which is connected directly to the vocal folds. And that's connected to the top of the epiglottis. And now if we zoom out, there's this connection between that and the tongue. So if I take this big old tongue muscle away, well, then that would be pointless because we want to see it. So I'll take the jaw away. So you can see we go straight from the hyoid bone. That's this bone here, shaped like a horseshoe. Right? And from this bone, we have a connection that goes from this giant big yellow muscle called the genioglossus. That goes all the way to the chin. And I don't know why I have my... Well, 1 second. I just need... This is driving me crazy now. Oh, whatever. Never mind. It's leaving my... Oh, no, that's driving me crazy. I need to get rid of it. Annotation. You can just stop that right there. We wanted to... Oh, that's being placed on the 3D cursor. That's why. Okay. So I'll just get rid of those and we'll make new ones. So this muscle I'm putting the blue on here runs to the chin, to the hyoid bone, and then right to the base of the tongue. That's one muscle. One set of fibers. But the fun doesn't end there with the hyoid and these big old muscles going to the tongue. Because if I pull that one away, oops. So I'll go to the other side here because I already got rid of the other one. So the tongue also has these muscles that go up the side, not just up the middle. There's also on both sides, and that's what I'm highlighting now. Hopefully, I'm hoping you can see all this because I'm working blind here. Okay, so if you look at this this hyoglossus, this is named for the hyoid bone and for the tongue, that runs up the side. So looking from the front, let's say, if I were to bring everything back, and we're looking at the tongue, and I just highlight these 3 muscles. Well, it's listed as 4 here. Okay. And let's also grab the hyoid bone. And remember where the tongue was there. Okay, so we're looking at that, essentially. Now, so when someone's talking about doing something with the tongue, and I guess trying to say that it's independent of the larynx, well, it's not. It's so if your tongue position is more front, your larynx is not as low as it could be, unless or either that or your tongue position is not as front as it could be. Those are kind of like mutually exclusive things. But those are also just anatomical addresses. Larynx being high, what does it mean? What is the length of area of interest number 1? And like, where is area of interest number 1 starting and where is it ending? Is it starting close to the sternum or is it starting kind of far from the sternum? It could be short but close to the sternum. And that's a whole different story from if it's long and close to the sternum. And those are all going to give the tongue different options. So, like, by the time you're doing something with the part of your tongue that shows up in your mouth that the guy was just showing us, that's just this. Just this. Out of everything we've been considering, that's just this little slice of stuff. And that's been stretched out. So if the larynx is quite low, the only way that this front part of the tongue is getting forward is if there's some kind of stretch and tension, which is fine. But there's nothing particularly special about having that part of the tongue forward. Okay, so that's, I guess that's all I wanted to show about that. Let's let him talk a bit more.
Tongue position. It's simple.
Tongue position.
If you put your tongue back, it will sound woofy. It will take the sound, it will make it darker in a fake way. Many people need that. Okay?
Why is that a fake way? And then does that mean that what he does at the beginning of the next video is fake? Because that's essentially what's making the difference between those two sounds. Especially in terms of the vowel. That's what that is. And I won't say he's retracting his tongue, because it doesn't mean anything. But I can say he's retracting part of his tongue into area of interest number 4 compared to what he's doing here. And then that, but that's not even telling you what he's done with area of interest number 4, because it looks to me like area of interest number 1 is not the same length in both examples. The first example, it's shorter. And how did it get to be shorter? Well, he raised his larynx to stick his tongue out of his mouth.
In the old times, like if you hear the words...
Well, why does he have to raise his larynx? Or, and, do anything like that to get his tongue out of his mouth? And it's like, well, look at the model we were just looking at. How else do we think the tongue is moving? Like if it's making this thing out of the front, what do we think is happening on the way there? Like is it like on a table or something? You're gonna have a bulge. Yeah, so Adrian, you don't have to raise your larynx to reach higher pitches until you do have to raise your larynx to reach higher pitches. I'd say there's also, it's like you got to be careful. What are you asked? Do you have to raise your larynx? Not necessarily. Do you need to shorten area of interest number 1? Probably, but not necessarily. It depends what it is that you're trying to accomplish with your higher pitch. There's cases where you need to open your mouth more, and then there's other strategies where you're not going to open your mouth more. And those are all going to get different results. But no, you don't have to raise your larynx to reach higher pitches until you do. And no, if you go in falsetto, generally I don't know, there's a way to hold the larynx down and do falsetto, but yeah, it tends to go high. And then also like rock singing and belting. In belting, you need the larynx to stay high, and to go higher and higher as you go higher. The mouth gets more open and the larynx has to rise to keep the first formant pegged to the second harmonic. But in opera, we're pegging the second formant to the third harmonic. So it's not necessary to have the first formant so high. which is why we can generally have a lower larynx in classical music. But also you can retract the neck. And this is so now my vocal tract is longer, and now it's getting shorter. So that's another form of vocal tract shortening area of interest number 1. And can have a similar effect to raising the larynx. Raising the larynx is kind of similar, but makes a different result.
Ramon Vinay, when your voice is real, is a real dark color voice, a real dramatic color, it doesn't mean that it's just dark. It's
when
dark.
your voice is real, it's a real. It basically means trust in me. It's like, it's just this. Look, I understand why teachers do it, and I don't fault them for it, especially considering how much consumers insist that they should do this. If you're a voice teacher and you try to not do this crap, students come along and try to force you to do this crap. It's the worst. But we should resist, and there should be some kind of pressure not to do this. So the reason for all of this fake and real stuff is because guess who gets the benefits when they're in charge of it is the voice teacher. The voice teacher benefits from being in control of completely arbitrary standards that are nonetheless considered to be really important. So as in, like, whether or not your darkness was fake or whether or not it was real. Don't pay for that. Don't. And if your teacher does this, like, say something and be like, can we get back to voice lessoning?
But it's powerful. And that means you can open.
That was important.
Color voice, a real dramatic color. It doesn't mean that it's just dark. It's dark, but it's powerful.
So,
and that means
Siriani demonstrated a quite retracted tongue, and it seemed to go hand in hand with creating power. I would say Siriani's demonstration appeared to be more powerful than Giancarlo Monsalve-Layton's demonstration. And I would say that the reason Siriani's demonstration was more powerful than Giancarlo Monsalve-Layton's demonstration is that Craig Siriani is correct when he's saying that retracting the tongue in the way he's doing is the way to kind of maximize vocal power. It's not necessarily saying it's better. You might want to do what Giancarlo Monsalve-Layton is doing and not what Craig Siriani is doing. However, if your goal is to sing as powerfully as you can, then probably listening to this kind of advice is not the best. Because you'll be denying yourself some of the more powerful coordinations that, and they're going to involve things like this, like extreme mouth openings, and the more extreme the mouth opening gets, the more extreme the tongue retraction is going to have to get. Because you'll be changing the proportions of your vocal tract. So keeping your tongue at the same acoustic address when you open your mouth a lot, for instance, requires putting your tongue in a more retracted anatomical address. Yeah, so I mean, those are yeah. So I'm not making value judgments, Adrian. about like what I prefer. But if what I'm saying is, we got to tell the truth. And so, if you're talking about this tongue retraction thing, there's no reason to think it makes the voice woofy. We can observe really directly that it doesn't make the voice woofy. I think if you retract the tongue a bit higher, yeah, you can. Yeah, this one, I wouldn't call this woofy. I would call this knurdly. But that again, that's just a term, just a subjective term. But if you want to call this woofy, okay. But this kind of sound, this is also tongue retraction. But if I just retract my tongue lower and more, well, basically into my larynx, it makes the sound much stronger. Strong, knurdly. Strong, knurdly. Now, both of those are tongue retraction. So it just doesn't, yeah. And if I just wanted to do a simple vowel change, for instance, and for some reason I wanted to be quite quiet, making a very quiet sound. Let's say it actually needs to be this quiet. And I want to have clear vowels. So here's my job. I'm going to do una furtiva lagrima. First phrase. Very quietly. And to do it very quietly, I'm going to keep my mouth very closed. So what's my tongue going to do for the first vowel? Una. It has to retract into area of interest number 4. It's like the only thing left. This area of interest number 5 has been completely constricted. It's totally occupied, so that area of interest number 5 is cranked up all the way to constricted. I'm only left with the back of the tongue being able to retract. And then that's just how I make that vowel now. It's like the only way left to make the vowel. And there's nothing, so does that mean all ventriloquists use fake we're just getting into like absurdity. It's logical absurdity. But I don't think the point is for this to be logical. Honestly, this material is made for vulnerable people. It's made like the reason you get attracted to this and labels like Voice Master, Giancarlo, Monsov, Leighton, etc. is because you're also insecure. So he's projecting all this insecurity to you. You're identifying with him, etc., etc. It's marketing. It's just marketing. Yep, that's right. Just say you don't like the sound. That's perfect. Just say you don't like the sound. And then you're not fake.
You can open your cavity, let the sound fly in a natural way and reflect into the resonant boxes of your body, chest, head, trachea.
What? Well, I think we just got into some singing metaphysics or whatever. Let's hear this.
Fly in a natural way and reflect.
I think he's going to give some kind of idea of resonance here.
Many people need that. Okay? But in the old times, like if you hear the words of Ramon Vinay, when your voice is real, is a real dark color voice, a real dramatic color.
Now, if many people need that, why isn't he teaching it? That's what I want to know. He just said many people need that. But he's also saying, I guess he's saying he doesn't teach it. Why wouldn't he teach it if many people need it? unless the goal here is after he gives you these signals about who's your leader and who's going to be telling you what's natural and what's not natural, he's now also telling you, guess what? You don't need that. You don't need that fake resonance. You can do real resonance. So that's the, if we're thinking from the heart point of view. Let's see if I bring this up. Yeah. So we got this knowledge, fitness, heart. I guess heart. This performance psychology. Unfortunately for students of singing, a lot of it has to be defensive. So I would like to help educate people about especially not getting teachers to do this who aren't already doing it. Because I think guys like Giancarlo Monsalve-Layton would not do this if they thought it wasn't going to be profitable. Doesn't seem like a bad guy. I think he's just responding to the market.
It doesn't mean that it's just dark. It's dark, but it's powerful. And that means you can open your cavity, let the sound fly in a natural way and reflect into the resonant boxes of your body, chest, head, trachea, all right? But without manipulating, like I said, the tongue.
Boxes of your, I don't even know. That's some bullshit. Your trachea. I mean, okay, your trachea does matter as far as resonance goes. There's this whole, I don't even know how it really works, but I read, whoops, I reset. I'm going to put 4 because I reset it accidentally. I mean, that was worth it. Oh, hi, Adrian. Well, funny that you should mention it. People looking for lessons can get in touch at the real Mr. Opera at gmail.com. I'll be teaching in Berlin starting in the late fall and more regularly going into the winter. And oh yeah, wait. Yeah, check it out. Huh? You made me do that, Adrian. That's your fault. But yeah, essentially, I got a little bit of a sports injury, shall we say, and so my season is not going to involve a lot of stage action. So I'm gonna be doing some teaching this season, and I hope I've contacted all the theaters that I needed to contact about that. But in any case, none of them care about my extracurricular activities, so they're not overhearing any of this. Yeah. So Adrian, my rates are it's floating. What is it? Floating scale. What's it called? Sliding scale. So it depends on where you're from. If you're like from New York, then it's New York rates, and if you're from some country where people don't have a whole lot of money, then I'm not gonna expect people to come up with New York rates. So if you're from a very poor country, then you pay very poor rates. No, if you're from a very poor country, then it's more expensive. See, that's how the world works. Just kidding. But that actually is how it winds up working for a lot of things, and that really sucks. Yeah, so just email me, and we'll let me know where you live and stuff, and I'll take a quick peek at what things go for in your area, and then we'll do something in that neighborhood. Yeah, so anyway, I forget what I lost my train of thought. I've got ADHD, so you gotta keep me so he was talking about these resonance boxes in the body or whatever, and opening the cavity. So I'm not sure what it means. But I can tell you my theory of where I think this comes from. Why do people get the idea that opening the throat is going to make your sound bigger? And I think there's two reasons they come up with that. The first one is really obvious. The first one is that opening your mouth makes the sound bigger. If opening your mouth makes the sound bigger, open makes big. Therefore, we open. Oh, now I'm over there. This is so weird that it does that. Oh, I know what's wrong. Okay. So it's this whole idea of open equals big. I don't know. That's what's going on. But what the area of interest system is hopefully teaching everyone is that opening can make small depending on where the opening is, and that the way the vocal tract set up is that every time a wave is hitting a maximum or a minimum, it's the effect of constriction is switching functions. So it goes like closing raises, then it's opening raises, then it's closing raises, then it's opening raises again. Things go back and forth in exact opposites. So that the way, if you're experienced with resonators, it doesn't make sense to expect both ends of the resonator to need to be more open to make the resonator more powerful, shall we say, to help it be more powerful. If you think about a megaphone shape, the whole idea of that is that one end is narrow and the other end is really fat and wide. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that there are these interactions that can happen not in the speech range really, but above the speech range. You can wind up getting this, what seems like a boost. It's kind of a boost. That helps you sing louder and have ring. And it comes from a kind of darkening. And it's like magic because it's an interaction between sound wave that went all the way to the front, shall we say. It doesn't really work that way. But imagine it went all the way to the end and it came back. And depending on what timing it had, it's either helping the vocal folds do their thing or interfering, right? And you've tuned everything just right so that you're bouncing something, it's coming back, and when it comes back, it's helping your vocal folds do their job. And that can seem like it comes from an open pharynx because often you've been making space somewhere in your pharynx to tune formants to a particular place, or you've been even constricting area of interest number 4 and you see space forming and you feel this feeling or something, I don't know, and you get the idea that, oh, okay, there's like a pocket in the back, and when you make it big, it makes the sound big in the same way that making the mouth big makes the sound big. But it doesn't work that way. There's a specific reason making the mouth bigger is helping you make a bigger sound. And it doesn't have to do with any of that. It has to do with just transferring the energy from a higher impedance medium, that's your vocal tract, to a lower impedance medium, that's the air around you that's not so excited and pressurized or whatever. And then at the other end, that's also helping us make a better transfer of energy from the larynx to the vocal tract, is this constriction. So the opposite thing helps us make this energy transfer. And that's all that's going on. Well, that's not all that's going on, but I mean, that's what's going on. But is there this need to make a big space in the back of your throat to get a big sound? No. No. It does help you make a brighter sound, but let me ask you this. If retracting your tongue makes fake darkness, why doesn't pushing your tongue forward make fake brightness? Why is it only fake going in one direction? Really weird. I don't know how that works. It's like one way fakery.
Oh, huh? The sound, independently of the position of your tongue, it should be natural. The important thing is to keep your larynx and pharynx open.
So,
Gola aperta. Words.
Wow. Let's just grant for a second that you really do need to keep the larynx and pharynx open, which is BS. That's like saying that you need to get rid of the mouthpiece on your trumpet. Maybe to some extent the pharynx. Okay, whatever. If you're trying to raise the second formant there or something, I don't know what you do, but maybe you want it higher. But let's watch again.
The sound, independently of the position of your tongue, it should be natural. The important thing is to keep your larynx and pharynx open.
So,
gola aperta.
Moving the tongue out of the pharynx is how ostensibly he's opening the pharynx. But this again is brightening from the back of the throat, is it not? And why is that not fake brightening? It's the same thing as this. We're just chasing around, I guess. Going around in a circle with this video. So Ashtar Asterios, opening the throat would help lower the larynx. Is it not true? No, it's not true. I suppose. So if I pull the trachea down directly with the diaphragm, that goes with the kind of yawning sound, and the yawning sound has a really open throat. What I call area of interest number 3 is really open. And that's a low larynx. But most people are not trying to sing like this. So I can demonstrate. Now, my larynx is very low, but my throat is very open. So, unless you were trying to do this sound, which, by the way, this sound also has really, really a whole lot of airflow. A whole lot of airflow. Because airflow and it has a very open pharynx because that's the way to get a powerful sound. If that's what you wanted, then open your throat and lower your larynx. If that's not what you wanted, do not open your throat and lower your larynx. Now, see, voice teachers, I can play that game too. So there's this game the voice teachers play where whenever they want to demonstrate something that they don't want you to do, they purposely make it sound really bad. As if, like, the people who are using that are doing that. And they always really botch it. But this time, actually, what I was doing was literally opening the throat and the pharynx and lowering the larynx with a kind of yawn or dopey technique. No, so I would not open the throat to lower the larynx. I would first learn how to create good vocal fold closure, you know, with the glottals and things, just like Maloki was doing, just like the old school guys were doing. And I would learn how to make what they call twang, and a metallic sound, and then I would, at the end, learn how to lower the larynx and with that. But I would not open the throat to do it, unless you want that sound I made. And don't open your throat unless you want me to make that sound, because I will haunt you with that sound. Yes, this is right. Bubbles and his kitties, his little kitties, and his Bubbles and his shopping carts. That's the way to go. That's maybe what I'll be doing soon with my friggin' gimp leg.
Words of Giacomo Lauri Volpi. Come on, people, look.
But singing Mephistopheles, by the way, by the end of the week. So we're gonna. I've told them like I can't do any getting on the ground or anything. Basically, I can like walk around. Like I have trouble with stairs. Anyway, it's gonna be fun.
No change in the color, not too much difference.
Okay. Let's get a closer look.
Should be practically the same. Let's do a little Meloki exercise.
The same. Like which John Carlo Monsov Layton, and I mean it wasn't exactly the same, but so which area of interest would he be interacting with here by moving this part of the tongue that it's already not in his mouth? Like what difference does it make that he moves it a bit more? I would point out that if you remember the model we were just looking at, 3D model, now look at his chin. Think about those muscles we looked at. Think about where his hyoid bone is, and think about where his tongue is now. And how is it that there would be any room in area of interest number 3? There isn't really, which is why he's got this sound. There's constriction there. That's why he's got this sound. The problem isn't, that he's got constriction. I mean, that's actually what makes it sound good. And I mean, is this the most robust coordination that he could bring to this? No. But a more robust coordination on a C5 isn't necessarily going to be better, because it's not going to be as dependable. It's like it gets a lot harder.
Should be practically the same. Let's do a little meloki exercise. So try to disconnect your larynx.
Listen to the amount of twang.
Meloki exercise. So try to disconnect.
What's the explanation for that? Or for that sound being so different? I would say that this first sound is, well, Adrian, more robust, but it's more metallic.
Your larynx from the tongue position. So don't do. Let's do a little meloki exercise.
So this first sound, listen carefully to. Well, I would say the high mids, the high middle part of the spectrum. So 2500, 3500 range in there. All that. You've got way more twang here. And you've got way more twang because his tongue's in a better position to constrict area of interest, number 2. And when he takes his tongue out of that position, despite what he tells us, it sounds completely different. And this first one is going to cost you way less. The second one is, I don't know, it's bullshit just to try to make a point, I guess. But you wouldn't. Why would you use that instead? I guess to be less loud, but just close your mouth.
The meloki exercise.
So it goes from very metallic to reducing the crap out of that metal. I don't know if that's even metallic at all. And why wouldn't it make a huge difference to his sound? Especially now that, you know, he's not as much tension, notes not as high, not as much tension from the chin and mylohyoid muscles and all that stuff. So now you really need the tongue. And getting rid, like, it's like you're on the video showing us how much stronger it is with the tongue back.
To disconnect your larynx from the tongue position. So don't do.
Adrian, if a bass is singing a high C, depends how stretchy their chords are. I mean, usually you've got most people singing high C. There's going to be some stretch, but in theory, you just got to have the right. If you have the pressure and the resistance to the stretch, you combine those, you got a C. But maybe we're getting outside of, you know, it's like why is it really unlikely for a bass to have it? It's because you're getting into like really strong forces now. But yeah, basically, I think the bass is. Oh, maybe that's you got. There's some basses, and some basses don't use a lot. They don't really turn the voice over. But I've heard some that do, and they get really, really freaking loud when they go up.
I don't know. Don't let your larynx follow the position of your tongue. So be able to keep the tongue forwards and your larynx low in position. Let's do it in passaggio.
But he just showed us that he can't really isolate the two on his lower thing, especially. If you can come up with more force holding the hyoid down than pulling the hyoid up, you will hold the hyoid down. There's a lot of muscles attached to the hyoid, so if that works, it works. But and certainly you can stretch the tongue away from the larynx, but when you do, you're putting tension between the tongue and the larynx. So as long as you want that, it's fine. But there is no there's no independence of the tongue and the larynx. I mean, look at the model. The tongue's going right in there. It's like super attached to the larynx.
Keep your larynx steady, the most you can.
Again, I mean, this is making a change in the sound. And this first sound, when he's not doing stupid things with his tongue, is professional, and I'm not sure about the other one. I don't know how he didn't hear that when he was editing this. I mean, you can hear that.
Keep your larynx steady, the most you can, without being affected by the position of your tongue. Okay? And never, no, don't put the tongue up or whatever. The tongue have to be free. Free, relax. If it goes a little up, it's normal in the house.
If it needs to be forward, though, if the larynx is low, wherever the hyoid bone is, for the tongue to be away from there is not relaxation. That's just based on the, like, there's no like area in space where the tongue relaxes to. It relaxes towards the things that it's attached to. So if your larynx is low, your tongue's going to want to go low. If your larynx is high, it's going to want to go high. There's a back and a front to your hyoid bone, and then there's also a whole bunch of muscles attaching your tongue to different places along your neck. Those could all be pulling the tongue up. You could have different reasons for pulling the tongue up and back, or I don't know. What I'm trying to say is the reason we keep just going around in circles is that guys like him who would be making really great contributions are trying to do it with language that completely cripples them. It's like his thought process are crippled by this, because the language is so confusing, and it doesn't mean it's not that it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything consistent. It changes meaning like from one moment to the next.
I know, so it will go a little bit, but keep it forward. Never do the spoon up, please. So let's not focus on color. Color is something you build after with your natural cavity. That's what Marcello del Monaco focused.
I feel some strange trepidation. I've had online voice teachers before that are awfully interested in natural cavities.
A lot. Color. But first you need the basic of your natural voice. Huh? There you go. Have a nice day. Sorry.
I mean, okay, so you don't want to have artificial darkening. Instead, you need artificial brightening, and that will be natural.
I'm in pajamas. It's very early, and now I go on with the lessons. Keep it real, people. Careful.
Okay, a very fast advice before starting.
So I mean, I guess that's enough for the day. Yeah. I mean, that was fun. We got just keep up a bunch of stuff. Like I was supposed to watch this with
Many speakers
and then Adrian
and singers struggle with tensions at the root.
This one.
This is the proverbial case of you.
Many speakers and singers struggle with tensions.
Maybe she's like sticking a pencil in her. That's extreme. That's like now you're so obsessed about this one front part of your tongue. That's in area of interest number 2. where it's not generally, you know, like area of interest number 2 is like not generally where we're working, and then you put this pencil here and you start working in there. Adrian, I put the pop stuff because I think it's interesting, and it's good to see the parallels. Like, for instance, when you're watching Ken Tamplin talk about his open throat technique, and you see that it's completely different from like what this guy was just saying is open throat technique, and then someone else teaching something else completely different is also doing open throat technique, and like everyone's doing different things, and it's all open throat for some reason. Why is it open throat? Why are they not doing closed throat technique? You start to see these patterns. And one thing I want to show on Mr. Opera is that like the marketplace is distorting the actual content that we're getting. It has a lot to do with like what's encouraged and what students expect. What people are expecting when they go on YouTube. More like they're looking for validation more than they are looking for information. And they're looking for someone to make them feel less insecure is my feeling. But I think that to get at it, to show what it is that's actually going on, I think we need to show the pattern and how it's recycled and reused in other genres that sound nothing like classical. Like, it starts to get ridiculous. Like, how many different things are people doing different things are reusing this open throat language? It's the same freaking language. How is it everyone is trying to do the same thing to get completely different results? So yeah, that's the reason for looking at what's wrong. It's not about like, is it wrong? It's about like, why is it wrong? And then what can we actually learn from breaking down why it's wrong and how it works? That's what's important, I think, is how these bullshits are actually put together. When you take them apart and you understand, what it was that caused the bullshit to occur, then I think there's something to be learned. Something really important. But yeah, a lot of the things I know about anatomy, for instance, I learned from, I see some bullshit, and like, I don't know why it's bullshit. I kind of smell the bullshit. I'm like, that smells like bullshit. But I can't say why. I can't say why that's bullshit. So then I go and I research. And that's my education journey. And then a lot of my teaching, and then like how I coach myself, but then how I talk to others and everything, it comes from the experience of how I was educated and how I was not satisfied with that education. And all these examples we see on YouTube are pretty typical for the kind of education I had. So yeah, basically that's why I quite simply made a list of things I think from a knowledge perspective would have the most impact on the greatest number of students. And I think that re-educating consumers to behave in ways that encourages teachers to do better would get the most results for the most the best results for the most number of people. Yeah. So that's that. But I'm also doing, hopefully you feel I'm doing some offering of actual information that you can use. So these areas of interest that I'm talking about, that's my offer for an actual roadmap for discussing what is going on with the position and motion of your tongue. It's not just your tongue, it's everything in your vocal tract. But if you wanted to talk about, like, are you retracting the tongue or whatever, and you want to talk about the effect on the sound, then you should talk about the acoustic addresses that you're interacting with. Where are you moving things, right? And the name that you give that location should be referring to something significant to you. And it's fine to talk about anatomy like they are. But I think when it comes to describing the effect on the sound, the language that we're being offered leaves a lot to be desired. So yeah. But when it comes to twang and stuff and how to get that going, send me an email. We'll get started if you want, and I'm sure I'll get plenty of ideas for what to talk about that would appeal to you, since I'd have the stuff you're actually doing on my mind. But anyway, I guess that's that. So thanks for joining me on Mr. Opera, and I guess I'll do this last little begging commercial. I have been feeding the cat again, by the way. I had a visitor that was scaring the cat away regularly. But now that's over for the moment, and I'm all alone here, just me and the cat and my busted knee, making live streams on YouTube. So yeah, feel sorry for me. No, don't feel sorry for me. But yeah, I'm just gonna leave you with this. See you next time, and don't starve the cat.
The straw.
It's just a straw, right?
It's not just any old straw. We've sized it very particularly, you guys.
So the SWT Straw Pro comes with a minimum of 40 resistance configurations in one device.
And then we have 2 straws that are the exact same size, diameter, and length. And this is so that we have options.
After you've practiced the exercises for maybe 5 minutes,
you'll see here that the vocal cords aren't in sync with each other.
You have to put more work within the body to just get things going because the straw isn't providing you with enough.
Press your voice like this. It is very important that you let no air escape around the straw between your lips or through your nose.
But the thing is, with that, it cuts off the nasal resonance part of singing, which is very important to singing.
It's almost as if you're trying to release it out through the straw to whatever's in front of you.
You will find when you go back to normal speech, that your voice seems to be coming out of your eyes instead of your throat.
If you are splashing yourself, you're creating volcanoes, and that is not allowed.